I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Friday, TGIF. Thank goodness. We have made it through another week, at least until today. We are going to have a little bit of fun. We got some segments here. We got some fun stuff. We got some disastrous stuff. We have, of course, House COVID meetings going off the rails. That's a lot of fun. We got a so-called socialist CEO having a little bit of comeuppance. So we're going to check in on CEO Dan Price and see what's going on, see how his business is doing since he decided to pay his workers more. Interesting. I wonder if it will be a disaster like was predicted by conservatives everywhere, by Fox News. I wonder if that's what's going to happen. Stay tuned. We've got an oath keeper going against fellow MAGA rioters. And then Florida approves the PP police. That's right, the PP police. If you're a trans girl, girl in school, in either college or high school, prepare to have genital inspectors. That's what they're trying to do in Florida. Remember, these are kids. High school kids in some cases. That they want to check their genitals. So, look at that. Fun. Is the situation in Northern Ireland mentioned in the U.S. news? Not very much, honestly. There's not a lot about that. So, the CEO story. Yes, it's a $70K minimum wage CEO. So that's a fun story. I think you'll all enjoy that. We're going to get through some, again, the fun stuff and then hit that disastrous story last. Not because I want to leave you on a negative note for the weekend, but because it is really important. It's fresh on your mind over the weekend. Thank you, Simius, for subscribing with Prime. Do appreciate that. All right. Yates is the first in line for the genital inspector. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So here we go. Before we do get into the show, of course, I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to ask you all to please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Give us a like on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, of course. I don't really know if you can really do a thing like a like, but please follow us. And if you like what we're doing here, please subscribe, become a member, donate some bits. All the fun stuff, if you, like I said, enjoy what we do. That said, let's jump in to the first story. We're going to have some fun. Good old Jim Jordan. Ah, yes. Recently, a hearing for the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus went off the rails when Representative Jim Jordan started ranting about freedom. In fact, let's take a look.
Well, in your written statement, you say, now is not the time to pull back on masking, physical distancing, and avoiding congregate settings. When is the time? When do Americans get their freedom back?
When we get the level of infection in this country low enough that it is not a really high threat.
What is low enough? Give me a number. What, I mean, we had 15 days to slow the spread, turned into 1 year of lost liberty. What metrics, what measures, what has to happen before Americans get their freedoms back?
My message, Congressman Jordan, is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as we possibly can to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer a threat. That is when. And I believe when that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? I mean, are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure? What standard? What objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back? For a year now, Americans haven't been able to go to church. Even today, when they go to church, they're limited in the size of worshipers who can meet. Your right to assemble? Oh, my goodness. We had a curfew last fall in Ohio. You had to be in your home at 10. In Pennsylvania, you had to be in your home. When you're in your home, you had to wear a mask. In Vermont, when you're in your home, you didn't have to wear a mask, Dr. Fauci, because you weren't allowed to have people over to your house.
Yeah, Congressman Jordan.
Your ability to petition your government for a year, American citizens haven't been able to come to their capital to petition their government, to talk to their representatives.
All right, so that's just some of what Jim Jordan was going off about. But, oh man, your freedom. You've lost all your freedom. You've lost all your freedom. Really? That's a pretty privileged position to hold. To think that your freedom is impacted because you've been asked to wear a mask in public. It really hasn't. It's kind of like being told to wear pants in public, honestly. Or washing your hands while working at a restaurant. You kind of are supposed to do that because it's a public health risk. Just saying. Maybe Jim Jordan thinks that it's an assault on his freedom that he can't rip off his pants in the middle of the street or in the Senate chamber and just have his whatever flopping around. Or maybe this is all performative bullshit. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Has your First Amendment been impacted because there are less people in the churches? Not necessarily. I mean, you could still worship whatever God you believe. There's not people that are knocking on your door and say, you can't worship God. No, you could do so. You could do so in the safety of your home. It's a health risk for people to gather. You're not stopping people from practicing religion. You're stopping people from spreading a deadly virus. And so that's the problem here. And again, you can gather also with other vaccinated people at your own house in small groups, and that's totally fine. I've not seen one instance of somebody being arrested for not wearing a mask or gathering in one place without social distancing. It's true. The only people that are really suffering harm here are small business owners. And let's be fair about that. It is. They are suffering through this. But the thing is, Republicans like Jim Jordan don't actually do anything to help small businesses. They'll talk a big game. And they'll talk, oh, small business, we support small business. But in reality, they allowed funding for relief through the Paycheck Protection Program to end up going to big corporations that don't need it, and even to small-time grifters that just use the money to buy cars and shit. So really, all this is just performative nonsense. And so as a result, Dr. Fauci, he's a medical expert here. He's not interested in what Jim Jordan is saying, and he's going to shoot back.
I think you're making this a personal thing, and it isn't.
It's not a personal thing.
No, you are. That is exactly what you're doing.
No, your recommendations carry a lot of weight, Dr. Fauci. We just had the chair of the Financial Services Committee said she loves you and you're the greatest thing in the world.
My recommendations are consistent.
Will the gentleman yield?
No, it's my
Now, could I answer the question, please? My recommendations are not a personal recommendation. It's based on the CDC guidance, which is
And I'm asking the question,
underscored.
what measures have to be attained before Americans get their First Amendment liberties back?
I just told you that.
No, you haven't given anything specific. You said, we hope when this, tell me specifically.
Right now, we have about 60,000 infections a day, which is a very large risk for a surge. We're not talking about liberties. We're talking about a pandemic that has killed 560,000 Americans.
All right, so here's the thing. What they're trying to do right there, when he's trying to make this about Fauci, because throughout the whole rant, he's like, Fauci, tell me the answer. Tell me the answer, Fauci. What's the number? What's the number? You tell me, right? You tell the American people why you're taking their liberty away. And so here's the thing, right? Like the Republicans, Jim Jordan wants to make this into a cult thing, okay? Wants to make this into, oh, they only follow Fauci because he's Fauci. You know, it's that they're not actually following the facts. They're just following Fauci because of Fauci. But here's the thing. It's not about him. It's about the data. It's about the facts. But yes, people like Anthony Fauci are trusted more than someone like Donald Trump, for example, when it comes to COVID. It's because Fauci is an infectious disease expert and Donald Trump is a reality show clown that tells you to inject disinfectant. I'm just saying. Fauci, what he does is report what we currently know about the science. He is not always right. And understand that is an important thing to note, is that he's not always right, because guess what? The science changes based on observations and testing. And so that's why conservatives hate science. They cannot accept that we do not know everything 100% of the time. Their fearful little brains cannot, what they do is they crave certainty, okay? And the desire to be 100% right 100% of the time. And that is not something that can be attained by science, because science, what it really is a process. Science is a process of getting to an answer that most of us, virtually all of us, can agree with on how something is supposed to work, what we see. And that's, again, sometimes, depending on how we look at things, certain fundamental things can change, or we can change our understanding of certain things so that we understand the universe, the world around us, a little bit better than we did before. And that's the thing. But there are people that say, no, I don't like that because that makes me afraid. I get scary. I get scared. This whole thing is scary, not knowing things. So I'm going to explain it as God did it or whatever. But science says, well, we don't understand what happened, what did it. Let's investigate. Let's ask questions. And that's not to say that you can't believe in God and also do science at the same time. But there are a lot of people who just take one and not the other. And the ones that take God did it only, those are the ones that are really the problem. Okay. And because they're the ones who kind of get us stuck in the rut. And so, the I don't know the answer and I don't really care because I don't want to look stupid in front of other people and lose my authority over others. It's that mindset that gets us really stuck and actually ends up hurting people in the long run. And right now, the people that are pushing that the most are the Republican Party. And that's why they downplay the science and attack scientists. They attack experts. They delegitimize learning and institutions of learning, because they don't, want to show that they at some points were wrong, because that ends up delegitimizing them in the eyes of their followers. And so they also hate Fauci with a burning passion because he is everything that they believe is wrong with America. This is a man who is educated. They don't like people who are educated, telling them what they can and cannot do. So you can't do certain things, at least temporarily, because, again, the science, the evidence shows that those things might be dangerous as far as we can tell. So maybe we shouldn't do them and see what happens. Okay. And then more importantly, though, he also tells them that there are certain things that might be uncomfortable for them to do, that they should do so to protect other people. And that is the problem. That's what they cannot fucking stand. They cannot stand to do something that actually helps people that they may not know. And so it comes down to pure, unmitigated selfishness. And of course, what they're doing is they're focusing this rage on what really is the messenger. The data speaks for itself as it does, what we know so far. That said, so now this attack on Fauci, this unhinged rant by Jim Jordan, did not go unanswered by other congresspeople. In fact, finally, after a few minutes of nonsensical ranting, James Clyburn and Maxine Waters decided they were going to jump in. Take a look.
Where does it get to? When it comes down, what number do we get our liberties back? Tell me the number. Tell me the number.
When 90% of the members of Congress get vaccinated.
But you're not a doctor, Mr. Clyburn. He is. What is the number?
I can't
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Clyburn. Thank you.
Chair now
for giving me the time.
recognizes for 5
I'd
minutes.
like my question
Ms.
answered.
Maloney.
I don't want.
Reclaiming my time.
want to-
Reclaiming
I
my
want to-
time.
Order. Regular order.
No,
Just a moment.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want you to answer my question. The American people want Dr. Fauci to answer the
Well-
question. What does it
Time
have to be?
expires, sir. You need to respect the chair and shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth. She just gave him a tall glass of shut up juice. I love it. This is the correct response. And look, okay, here's one thing I'll give him to. I'll admit, Americans are fucking sick of this pandemic. We all are. Honestly, we got pandemic fatigue. I tell you, I'm tired of wearing a mask. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. And hey, look, we're doing the best that we can, right? And we got to continue doing the best that we can because we're almost near the end of this thing. That doesn't mean, though, since we're close to the end, that it's time to go ham and mask off everywhere. Okay? No, we have to vaccinate everybody, and we have to let the cases die down, and we still have to continue doing what we're doing. But there is an end in sight. We will be able to, at some point soon, be able to go back to some semblance of normal, and it's never going to be normal again. But we can get close to that. But we just got to hold on. But unfortunately, thanks to people like Jim Jordan telling everybody that they're under assault, their liberties are being taken away, and not, setting a good example for everyone else, we've got people that went to spring break, and shocker, those same people came back with COVID-19. I mean, and unfortunately, they're dying from it. And again, members of the dead and the hospitalized include a lot of young people. In my state alone, of Michigan, there's some stories that top some headlines. One of them was a woman who was 28 years old, got COVID, died. Started out with pneumonia, or she thought she had it, and then, well, she got tested for COVID, then it just got worse from there. And not only that, but again, in my state, and there's a lot of states that are, showing a surge as well. For example, Ohio, which is where Jim Jordan is from, they're seeing a surge as well. But in Michigan, there are stories of people who are 40, 30, 39, 33, 28 years old, this mid-range of people who were supposed to be a lot, to not die as much from COVID-19, that are dying from COVID-19. And so you've got more virulent strains of this virus that are going around, and you've got young people who are not vaccinated, not immune, but are also still going out and still saying, well, this virus, not a big deal, not a problem. We'll be fine, 99% survival rate. But no, that's not true. The virus is serious, and if it doesn't kill you, it could leave you with lasting things like organ damage, neurological issues, things that could last for the rest of your life. All right. Wear the mask. Wear the mask. All right. It's a minor inconvenience, okay, to wear a mask, and maybe you have to put off your annual Christmas party for another year, or uninvite a few people. That is still better than losing those members of your family, because unlike the party, you can't bring dead people back for the next year. Once they're dead, they're dead. And you tell me what's worse, without bringing up these nonsense conspiracy theories. Temporarily worshiping at home, as some people do, as anybody could do at any time, or, having to wear that mask to go out and meet your, some people outside, or go to the grocery store in public, or getting sick yourself, or even worse, giving that to your family members. That's really the choice here. And for me, the choice is simple. I'd rather do what I need to do to protect myself and my family until this thing is over. The new strains are scary. It's true. Maybe if they didn't think it was hoax, maybe the shutdowns wouldn't have lasted long. They didn't. Here's the thing. We really didn't even shut down. At least not to really any sort of significant point. There are some states that shut down kind of partially, and there are some states that kind of, didn't shut down, but some got some mask mandates here and there, but not really. There really wasn't a uniform response. I think maybe we had just a couple of weeks, of like a shutdown, and then that was it. Yeah, open it back up, back to business. Come on. It's ridiculous. Republicans had their way. This would never be over. Yeah, and again, they don't care, because as long as it doesn't impact them, they don't really give a shit. That's what it is. All right. Moving on. Speaking of masks, Texas Senator Ted Cruz faced some backlash on Thursday after saying that he would no longer wear a face mask on the Senate floor or in the U.S. Capitol. Cruz told CNN that he was ditching the mask because he and everybody working in the Senate have received their COVID vaccination, so therefore, it's fine. I don't have to wear a mask anymore. It's good. We got vaccinated. Unfortunately, that's not exactly how it works. So now, getting a vaccine is good, and I definitely suggest that everybody do so. When you're eligible to be able to do so. That said, that doesn't mean that we can. As soon as you're vaccinated, you're 100% immune and you're good to go. That's not how it works. Okay, there are still chances. There are still ways that you could still get impacted by the virus, get sick from it, even though it's much more rare. And if you do get sick from it, it's not as deadly. It's not as lethal. And there's still disputed science on whether or not you can still give it to somebody else, even if you've had the vaccine. So really, again, the CDC is saying that, hey, you should still, out of an abundance of caution, wear the mask until the cases start to, decrease in a big way. And it hasn't done so. In fact, according to the CDC, people who have been fully vaccinated, yes, are able to visit a home or private setting without a mask with other fully vaccinated people of any age. They can also visit inside a home or private setting without a mask with one household of unvaccinated people who are not at risk for severe illness. So generally, that's pretty clear. Small areas. Now, the Senate isn't exactly small. The U.S. Capitol is not exactly small. Okay? Now, for medium or large size gatherings of people, here's what the CDC recommends. Avoiding those, adhering to workplace guidance, and against visiting indoors without a mask with people at increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19. Which, of course, if you look at the people that make up the Senate and the Capitol building, most of them are pretty freaking ancient and therefore are at higher risk. Not only that, but the CDC also the CDC guidance also states, we're still learning how vaccines will affect the spread of COVID-19. People need to keep taking precautions after being vaccinated, like wearing a mask, doing social distancing, and avoiding crowds in poorly ventilated spaces in public places until we know more. Lawmakers in the Senate, unlike the House, are not mandated to wear masks, but they probably should. Because there is over 100+ people in the Senate at any given time. It's not just the senators that are in there. You also have aides, you also have reporters, you have people that may or may not have been eligible for vaccination. And so you might want to be considerate about the health of other people as well. Okay? And again, I think, as far as my opinion is concerned, Ted Cruz should always wear a mask because it's Ted Cruz. Nobody wants to see his smarmy face. But this is me. But as far as Ted Cruz is concerned, he doesn't give a shit about other people. As soon as he, gets the opportunity, like, I'm ripping this mask right off. Now, all right. So here's the thing about a lot of these Republicans. They're worse than children. They really are. Oh, it's uncomfortable. I can't breathe. My freedom is to show my ugly face everywhere. Here's the thing. You got doctors, you got nurses, you got medical assistants, you got fast food workers that have to wear masks all day long now. If they can do it, so can Ted Cruz. I mean, stop crying about how you can't breathe through a thin piece of fabric, okay? So obviously this went over like a lead balloon on Twitter. In fact, here's some responses. The modern conservative movement. I'm fine. I don't care about other people. How often have we seen that to be true? Another person says, Ted Cruz is a self-centered jerk. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. And a person with the best handle ever, a big dumb idiot man. Here's what he says. After 13 months of a major pandemic, our senators still don't understand the basic concept of setting a precedent for other people. It's really not that complicated. For somebody who calls himself a big dumb idiot man, he is on point. Absolutely on point. And then finally, last one. Hey, Ted Cruz, if you're vaccinated, you can still pass COVID-19. That lands in your nose and stays alive for 72 hours. I'll have to check the science on that one. But then says this, you're a pathetic, selfish little snowflake. POS, you will get Lysol'd if you come near me without a mask. Correct. Good stuff. Crazy Hawaiian in PA says, I just don't understand why masks are such a huge deal. I know what mask opponents say. Many Asian countries wear masks all the time. It's not a big deal. I guess it's cultural. Wish the U.S. would adopt that thing. But here in America, we don't do things that are sensible. We don't do that here. Okay? We don't do that here. All right? Let's see. I can't breathe. I'm glad that surgeons are somehow able to stay alive and not pass out when they perform long surgeries. True. And if you're really... And here's the irony about that. With conservatives that scream, I can't breathe. They're the same ones that support police officers that choke out people like Eric Garner, who said, oh, I can't breathe, right? And the police officer, you know what he said? Fuck your breath. And this police officer got huge support from Republicans. Ridiculous. All right. Let's move on. A CEO that was once derided at Fox News as a socialist for paying his workers a starting wage of $70,000 per year is now having the last laugh. This is according to a recent article in HuffPost that writes, back in 2015, the tech entrepreneur shocked the business world by slashing his own $1.1 million pay package to help fund a minimum living wage of $70,000 for all workers at his credit card processing company, Gravity Payments. So now that's, of course, really good PR. Props on that. Price's decision led him to being heavily criticized as a socialist on Fox News and Fox Business. In fact, I've got some of those videos right here.
Have you seen the CEO of the Seattle-based company who raised the minimum wage at his credit card processing company to $70,000 per year?
Lunatic of all lunatics, Dan Price, CEO of Gravity Payments.
I hope this company is a case study in MBA programs on how socialism does not work, because it's going to fail.
Thoughts on this guy? Personally, I think he's a socialist, but
This is the man who's doing it. Are you a socialist?
Well, look, I don't support a minimum wage increase because it's a job killer.
Socialist. Crazy socialist. Socialism's scary, paying people $30 an hour while giving up some of your own pay. Right. Now look, obviously cutting your own salary and paying people more will somehow end in your business failing somehow, because socialism, right? Well, I mean, what happened since? Were they right? Was the late Rush Limbaugh correct? And his assessment is gravity out of business. Well, they caught up to him. And in the years since, according to Price, he has been hailed as a success by Harvard Business School and Inc. magazine, which noted the number of employees at Gravity has doubled, while the value of payments that the company processes has gone from $3.8 billion to $10.2 billion per year. In fact, Price himself touted his business on social media. Here's what he said. Since our $70K minimum wage was announced 6 years ago today, our revenue tripled, headcount grew by 70%, customer base doubled, babies had staff grew by 10%, had by staff. 70% of employees were able to pay down their own personal debt. The homes that were bought by employees grew tenfold. 401k contributions grew by 155%. Turnover dropped by half. 76% of employees are engaged at work, 2 times the national average. Customer attrition fell to 25% below national average. They expanded to a new Boise office and enacted, even though Boise has a much lower standard of living than Seattle, they still enacted a $70,000 minimum wage there. And then their highest paid employee makes 4 times the lowest paid employee, down from 33 times. So that's a lot of positivity coming from this company. That's great. So now, look, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're near the end of it, hopefully, and a lot of businesses were affected by this. A lot of businesses were affected by the pandemic, and they were also affected. So and went through a tough time. In fact, Price says at the start of the pandemic, we lost about half of our revenue overnight. Now that's disastrous. So now what happened as a result? Well, he said that our employees were so invested that they took voluntary temporary pay cuts to prevent layoffs. So as a result, they ended up weathering the storm, paying everyone back for the wages they had lost, and then are now giving out raises to people who are still there. So, turns out, if the company is loyal to you and treats you well and doesn't treat you like you're a disposable piece of shit, it turns out that company, or those employees, will return loyalty to that company. It's really simple, okay? Happy workers make productive workers. It's 101. Okay, it really simple. Now he also explained what inspired this decision to cut his own salary to $70,000 a year and raise workers' pay. He had found out that an employee was working a second job at McDonald's, and then unlike a lot of the CEOs, like somebody like Jeff Bezos, for example, Jeff Bezos was like, "The fuck do I care? Get back to work. I don't care if you have to pee in a bottle or, poop in a bag. Go get back to work. I don't care if you have a second job." This guy's like, you have to work a second job? Why do you have to work a second job? Well, it's because I don't make enough. Oh, shit. I'm a bad CEO. I'm not taking good care of my workers. Well, I got to do something about it. Now, and that's what happened. So, yes, he took that drastic pay cut, but then said this, that I don't miss the millionaire lifestyle. This is somebody who, again, said, I'm gonna pay my workers fairly. And I'm gonna make the same as my workers. And that's it. There you go. And, you know, you can take quite a few lessons from this. For one, employee loyalty and success. Okay. It turns out, again, you can have success by paying your staff well. And of course, that involves not being a selfish asshole. I think, and I think that's the point that pissed off people at Fox News the most, and Rush Limbaugh and those on the right. In their world, they believe that being rich makes you better than other people. Like the whole fact of being rich is what makes you better. And the fact that, you know, you do whatever you have to do to claw your way up and step over people, well, that just makes you stronger and better and smarter. Hey, you're a smart person because you learned how to extract labor more efficiently and squeeze every single penny out of your workers while still keeping their wages low so that you can take home more money. Well, that just makes you a business genius. I mean, even with Donald Trump, who screwed, you know, people over and didn't pay people, didn't pay contractors, and then would declare bankruptcy and keep all the money for himself. They looked at that and said, yes, that's our man. Yes, that's how you do it. You're a business genius. Yes, not paying your taxes, business genius. We want to be like that guy. They're missing the point. But then for them, greed is moral. It's true. So if you're not extracting every single penny that you're legally allowed to, or even sometimes illegally, in the case of wage theft, you are a socialist, you are a communist, and you will fail. But he didn't fail. And that's because, of course, the workers had his back. They had his back because he ended up having their back. He might have failed, too, during this pandemic, like many other businesses have. But his workers ended up stepping up. They sacrificed. They took a pay cut. Because guess what? He also had taken a pay cut earlier on their behalf. And so I'm going to share a secret with some bigwig CEOs, okay? It turns out workers, we generally don't like it when our jobs go away. We don't like it when the business that we work at fails. Okay, guess what? We kind of want to have a job, right? But we want to have a job that treats us well. Okay, and if your employer pays you fairly for your labor, respects you, even gives you a say in the workplace, well, then that company is going to do better. In fact, that's why I'm a big fan of worker co-ops. Now, this particular company is not a worker co-op. But when it comes to pay, they do have a similar pay structure where you have everybody basically making around the same amount of money and having that floor of $70,000, which is over 30, I think somewhere around $35 an hour. I might be off on that a bit. That's a pretty good wage. It's a pretty fair wage, at least for me. Now, worker co-ops in the U.S., there's over 400 of them in the country, actually maintain a 2-to-1 pay ratio between the highest paid and the lowest paid workers, which is, again, kind of similar to what's going on at Dan Price's company. And so, by contrast, the average U.S. corporation has a CEO worker pay disparity of about 300 plus to 1. Now, the worker co-ops don't have a CEO, but in this case, the CEO is making similarly to the similar amount to the workers. And that's what's important. And yet, Fox News wanted to call this socialism. But again, a co-op is actually more along those lines of socialist. In fact, in a co-op, workers run the business. They own the means of production, in this case, for the company. And just like in this case, these companies tend to do a little bit better. In fact, a report by the Democracy at Work Institute and the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops shows that worker co-ops have a higher than average success rate than traditional businesses. Those that are 6 to 10 years old have a 25.6% success rate, while those over 26-year-old have a 14.7% success rate. By comparison, U.S. small businesses that are 6 to 10 years old have an 18.7% success rate, while those older than 26% have an 11.9% success rate. So generally, worker co-ops, and maybe it's because there are so few of them and that number is skewed, but from what I can tell so far from those numbers is that, yeah, more of them tend to do a little bit better than small business, and that we need to look further into that and maybe see something like that on a larger scale to see if worker co-ops are generally better and last longer. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be, why they wouldn't last, why they wouldn't be better, because what you have is a more invested workforce of worker owners. There are, of course, some drawbacks. Maybe there are some people who are worker owners that don't necessarily know, as much as some people who are dedicated to creating the business. Generally, that could be a case. Another case could be lack of capital, because you don't have the capital owners coming in and doing some heavy investing. And there are other issues, of course. However, generally, worker co-ops tend to be, from what we've seen, better. Now, you might be wondering why, in this case, I'm talking about worker co-ops to begin with. Because it turns out that not every CEO is Dan Price. Dan Price made so much news because he seems to be a pretty decent person. Okay. For every Dan Price, though, we've got 100 Jeff Bezos, whose employees might have to piss in a bottle while he brings home the majority of the money. If anybody couldn't afford to pay his employees $30+ an hour, it's somebody like Bezos. And unlike Price, I doubt Bezos would even miss the money or even notice that the money was gone. But it would make a huge difference in the lives of the workers with no ill effects on the company itself. In fact, as you can see, doing this helped the company. The greed of the CEO, however, does nothing to help the company. That actually hurts in the long run. And so the success of Price and his company, as well as the data on worker co-ops that we have so far, shows that we do need a transition to a system where we have more democracy in the workplace and more fairness in the workplace between the CEOs and the actual people who produce the labor. It's so much better. It sounds like so much better of a system than our current broken Gordon Gekko-esque Gilded Age bullshit system where all the money flows to the top. All right. We're going to take a quick break here. We got a couple more stories, so stay right here around the nation.
There's insanity in the control room.
Who's got a hammer?
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right. So, let's see. I want to thank Crazy Hawaiian and PA for giving up that free tier 1 sub. Appreciate that. And also, let's see. Rizita Cositas I could not read that very well. I do apologize, but thank you for subscribing with Prime. I do appreciate that. Let's see. Then let's go over here to super chats. Okay, I don't have any super chats. That's fine. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I do appreciate that. Tumbles25, thank you for the tier 1 sub. I do appreciate that. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to the Oath Keepers. So much for that happening, right? It appears that a self-described founding member of the Oath Keepers is getting ready to flip on his fellow MAGA rioters. So now the Washington Post is reporting that longtime Oath Keeper John Ryan Schaefer has agreed to plead guilty and work with prosecutors against others implicated in the January 6 riots that left 5 people dead. Now Schaefer, who prior to joining the Oath Keepers was best known as a guitarist. I've never heard of him or his band. I know maybe some of you have. Something to do with ICE. I don't know. Ice Ice Baby. ICE, Abolish ICE. I don't know. No, he wouldn't be on the side of Abolish ICE. But anyway. Yeah, apparently he was a far-right extremist and was making music and then all of that stuff. But, of course, he was also involved with the January 6 riot where he brought a can of bear spray. So now, as part of the deal, Schaefer will plead guilty to 2 of the 6 charges leveled against him by prosecutors, obstructing the official proceeding of Congress and trespassing on restricted Capitol grounds armed with a deadly or dangerous weapon. According to Politico, Schaefer was seen on camera deploying chemical spray at officers during the riots, which again is bear spray. Look, I know AOC once called Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear, but I don't think that it was quite literal. There is no bears, actual bears, in Congress for you to be using bear spray. But yeah, this guy, hey, so now you're turning on your friends. So much for keeping the oath. You're an oath keeper. So much for that. Sad. Iced Earth, was it? Oh, Iced Earth. Right. That's who he was. Oh, that sucks. And so yeah, this guy. So much for keeping the oath, right? Ratting at your friends for a lesser charge. So much for loyalty. It is really, really funny how quickly they throw each other under the bus, isn't it? First you had the Muffin Man, Jacob Chansley, Q Shaman. It was like, I was just protecting the muffins from the mob that you were a part of. All right. Then you had Donald Trump throw them under the bus as well. You had the right-wing media that's like, Antifa plant. Secret Antifa. Super soldiers. With the soup. But none of them had soup. Soup for their family. So that's how you know it's not Antifa. All right. And it's pretty hilarious watching them fall apart in the aftermath. But do remember, too, that what they tried to do was pretty dangerous. They tried to do an overthrow of the government, the country, the literal end of democracy to try to install a proto-fascist into office after he lost an election. That's it. Because this person could not accept his loss in the election, and neither could his fans. I mean, I guess this really turns out to be true. The fact that they were just not sending their best. Okay. All right. Moving on. It appears that they did it. They actually did it. The Florida House is now trying to push a bill that mandates genital checks for transgender girls. And of course, as if transgender youth do not have enough difficulty in their lives, let's just add another layer of embarrassment to these young people, while we also try to ban them from sports under the guise of fairness. Right. Now, this particular piece of legislation is called the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and it would ban transgender female athletes from competing on women's athletic teams in both high school and college sports. Although there is an exception for transgender male athletes to be able to compete on either team. Interesting. It's so its situation is not even applied equally. It only targets young transgender girls. Interesting. Furthermore, the law states that in cases where a student's biological sex is disputed, whatever that means, the law authorizes schools to require health examinations or documentations from the student's personal health care provider. A dispute regarding a student's sex shall be resolved by the student, school, or institution by requesting that the student shall provide a health examination or consent form or other statement signed by the student's personal health care provider, which must verify the student's biological sex, says the bill, which provides for routine sports physical examination of students' reproductive organs, genetic makeup, or testosterone levels. So basically, simply put, you got the PP police out there that are now going to be checking the genitals of both school, high school, and college-age girls if they think that your gender might be in question. If they think that you might be a trans woman, they're going to be able to check you. Again, there are cisgender women and girls who could look a little bit more masculine than your average woman, right? Maybe they worked out a lot. Maybe they didn't develop fully. Maybe they just were born tall. Who knows? I wonder if those same girls are going to be singled out for genital inspections too. The whole thing just seems like all sorts of different levels of fucked up. You know? It just... I get the idea of wanting things to be fair. I do. Hey, the thing is it really all that unfair to let transgender girls compete with other cisgender girls? I mean, if you consider what transitioning actually entails, if you're taking, for example, hormones, puberty blockers, things like that, then you're going to learn to lose, as a result of the transition process, muscle mass. And that might put you, or will generally put you, in the same range and level as cisgendered women or girls. But here's the thing, too. You want to talk about fairness. Well, even among cisgender women, there are differences in physical ability, right? Things are never going to be totally 100% fair. You're going to have really tall women or girls versus short girls. Is that unfair? You're going to have people who are more muscular versus those who are a little bit more chubby, in shape versus slightly out of shape, people with better lung function, people with stronger hearts. Where do you want to draw the line here? Okay. And so, but the thing is that nobody really talks about the differences between cisgender women and also cisgender men in sports. Right now, they're really focusing on trans women, and it makes you wonder why. Maybe because there's a deep-seated hatred of trans women, or maybe they just don't understand. And here's the thing. The disparity between trans men and trans women is also fairly large in this. I don't think trans men take a half a shit as much as trans women do. And it kind of, again, makes you wonder why. I mean, do cis men see trans women as a trap or something? A threat to their masculinity? Or do they see them as trading their privileged position as a male to be something that they consider to be inferior? Like a female? Are they personally insulted that somebody would want to transition into a female? It feels like there's a lot of insecurity on the part of transphobes and TERFs. you know? And as far as cis women go, there are some that are legitimately afraid of being assaulted by trans people in bathrooms. But that, again, that doesn't actually happen. No, you're far more likely for a trans woman to be assaulted in a bathroom. So that's the issue, okay? And look, the data, and the idea of that, you know, trans people will automatically, trans women will dominate sports. You know, if we allow them to participate, it's just not backed up by any of the data. We just don't have enough proof. And the research that does exist so far does not support the idea of a blanket trans ban on sports. And it's even more cruel, by the way, when you try to apply this ban to kids that just want to play sports in school for fun. Remember, this thing is for fun. Generally, that these trans girls want to play sports as fun activities with friends and teammates for the love of the game. Why is that? Why do we never talk about that? And I think the transphobes and I think the TERFs, they forget about this. This is not professional sports. These kids aren't making millions of dollars off playing. They want to play for fun. And yet, no, we're not only going to make you not, you know, make it so that you can't play. We're also going to subject you to genital checks. This is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Again, this is school sports like track and basketball. It's not the end of the world if your kid loses to a trans girl, which again doesn't always happen, and vice versa. Same thing. No, this is nothing more than people hating on trans people because they're basically the new group to hate, and that's what it is. They can't go after gay people anymore. No. That's the new culture wars are being waged against the trans. That's what it is. This bill in Florida, which is now headed for the Senate for consideration, is similar to dozens of other laws, which are being considered across the country, introduced by Republicans, that restrict the rights of transgender students. But again, this goes further than the other ones by literally introducing the PP police. LGBTQ plus advocates argue that the legislation is not only discriminatory, but could expose students to physical and sexual abuse as well as trauma. In fact, Andrew Coleman, transgender man, who's a student at Florida State, reportedly said this: "I ask that you read the bill and recognize the threat to privacy and lack of legal protection, potentially facing female athletes. Read this bill and recognize the perpetuating harm this legislation has to kids who just want to live." And that's it, to live their lives. And here's the thing. You got people out there that are still talking about, oh, it's the gay agenda, right? Or the LGBTQ plus agenda. Oh, man. You want to know what that agenda is? To live their lives and to not be attacked for it. That's it. It's freedom. They're not harming you. They're not harming your kids. They're not coming after your lifestyle. They're not shoving their lifestyle down your throat. They just want to exist. That's really it. And again, thankfully, most people know this in this country. In fact, 2/3 of Americans, according to a recent PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll, said that they are against laws that would limit transgender rights. So there's some nuance in this poll. Now, the opposition includes majorities of every political ideology, from liberal to conservative, in every age group. Fewer than 3 in 10 people support state laws to prohibit gender-affirming care for minors or that criminalize providers of that care. So you have, again, about 70% of the country that's like, no, let them have care that's gender-affirming. Again, this breaks down pretty evenly among Democrats and Republicans. Among Republicans, 26% support bills that prohibit that care, while 70% of Republicans are opposed. So they said, yeah, okay, you're trans. Go ahead and get the care that you want. That's 70% of Republicans. 69% of Democrats also agree. So in this case, the Republicans are they're pretty evenly split. That you have both Democrats and Republicans, majorities of them agreeing that, yes, you shouldn't prohibit gender affirming care. Good. Now, Republican support for criminalizing, however, providing gender transition related care was higher at 38%. That's double what Democrats had said. So again, in general, twice as many Republicans do support the criminalization of gender related care than Democrats. And gender affirming care, by the way, is things like puberty blockers and hormones. And so now support for criminalization gets higher among Trump supporting Republicans. 42% of people who supported former President Trump in the 2020 election said that they were in support of criminalization of that gender affirming care. But overall, as I said, proposed laws like Florida's are super unpopular among the majority of Americans. In fact, only 28% of Americans overall support bills to bar transgender youth from competing on teams that align with their gender, while 2/3 oppose those bills. Opposition is consistent across the political spectrum, with 2/3 of Democrats, Republicans, and Independents all in agreement. People who know somebody is transgender are 5 points more likely to oppose these efforts than people who does not. So, look, if you know a trans person, you realize that they're not out to harm you. They're not out to hurt your livelihood. They're not out to harm your family. Again, you will just find out that they're just there to live their lives. That's all they want. That's all they want. Why don't we leave them alone? Why don't we just let them do what they're going to do? Allow them to live their lives the way they want to live their lives. And this whole thing, again, Florida, what the fuck? Just because you're shaped like a dick doesn't mean you need to act like a dick. Okay, to the people that live there. All right, these are children. These are kids. These are kids that should not be subject to genital examinations because they're transgender. It's ridiculous. And so Florida, I don't have much hope for Florida. I mean, if Ron DeSantis does veto this, and I don't know what's going to happen, but he would get credit in my book if he does. I hope he does the right thing and actually opts on the side of actual freedom, which is to let these kids live their own lives, free of this kind of just absolute harassment. That's all I got to say. All right. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Let's see. Do we have any? Will I report on the drill sergeant harassing the black guy? There is an update on that, by the way. I believe that drill sergeant, he got fired. Now I have to look it up. Let's see. Drill sergeant suspended. South Carolina Army drill sergeant charged in viral altercation. Thanks, Fox News. Appreciate that. Jonathan Pentland, 42-year-old Army drill sergeant at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, has been charged with third-degree assault, also known as simple assault, in connection with a viral video that appeared to show him to shove a black man on a sidewalk. Yeah, good. Good. Don't shove people. Don't be an asshole. And guess what? Things have consequences. Fuck around and find out. That's all I got to say on that right now. All right. Thank you all for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Much appreciated. Like and share our videos as well. And have an excellent weekend. We will see you back here on Monday. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you all on Monday.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass P-word.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.